Zach Osborne pens a new 2-year contract with Husqvarna. We have injury updates on Chase Sexton, Jason Anderson, Cooper Webb, Coty Schock, and Ferrandis heading into the Indianapolis weekend. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple contracts we've heard may have been signed and a few guys that are still looking. I'm your host, Michael Lindsay. This is This Week in Moto, presented by Yoshimura. So starting off with our first news, again, Zach Osborne has penned a new 2-year contract with Husqvarna. This is not for him to race for the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna factory team, as he did announce late this last offseason that he would be retiring from full-time professional racing due to a series of back issues. We actually were able to catch up with Zach this week at a Husqvarna product intro at Glen Helen, where he did talk about it a little bit, basically explaining that no matter what, this would have been his final year of racing. That was his plan. But due to the amount of issues he was having with his back, he felt like he could not give his all to the team, his sponsors, and chose to step away instead of just ride out the last year of the contract and get that paycheck. So really admirable on Zach to basically step up and be able to do that and be able to basically admit like, hey, I just can't put in my all. The cool part with his new deal with Husqvarna, he is basically brand ambassador. He signed it actually the night before we saw him, and they've been trying to work it out for a little bit because, again, his plan was he would have raced this whole year and then probably worked on a deal like that for the following year. So they were able to come together, come to terms, and now we'll see Zach basically doing some one-off events for them. He still can race and he can still ride fairly regularly. It's just he can't put in the huge amount of training and the abuse that full-time professional racing would take on his body. So you'll see him do like the World Two-Stroke Nationals at Glen Helen coming up soon. He's doing some hare scrambles. He's got a bunch of other events like that he's starting to pretty much mark down on his calendar. So we'll still get to see a lot from Zach around the industry and being involved in media and stuff with Husqvarna. We just won't see him at the racetrack full-time. Talking about some of the injury updates, of course, Detroit was just hell on most of the class. We did see basically that Cooper Webb, Chase Sexton, Jason Anderson, and Ferrandis were all unable to finish the main event due to various incidents and crashes. So starting out with the really straightforward ones that came out early in the week, Chase Sexton pretty much announced the day after the race that he would be good to go for Indianapolis, that he was just very bruised up, and that he felt sorry for the incident between him and Webb. As Cooper admits, though, it was his fault. Chase just was like, man, my bad. I'm sorry I landed on you, but again, there was just nowhere for him to go. His situation looked really rough on TV, definitely scraped up, torn up jersey, but nothing really stand out that he was able to announce injury-wise, that just, again, he'd be good to go for Indianapolis. Possibly one of the more surprising ones is after watching Jason Anderson slide out after the finish line and what we believe is probably his head pretty good, he got up, continued through the next section, and pretty much rolled off the track and fell over. Again, the series does have a full-on concussion protocol that these guys have to pass after situations like this when they believe they may have experienced some sort of head trauma. Apparently, Jason has passed it because he was announced he is racing this weekend. He would have had to pass it to be allowed to race and even be back on the bike. We saw him in California riding this week at some of the test tracks. So again, Jason said he is good to go for Indianapolis. Cooper Webb has also come out and said he will be racing this weekend, albeit he is the first of those three to announce like he actually has some long-standing injuries that he can announce. He does have some major bone bruising or contusion to the shoulder area, and then he does have a broken metacarpal, which is one of your bones. He didn't say which hand, but it is one of the bones that articulates in the palm of your hand that leads to your fingers. So one of those is broken, but as Coop says in his own announcement, he gets paid to race. He's going to show up and get the job done. And then lastly, of those 4 incidents, the one that will not be lining up is Ferrandis. Dylan's crash was not really caught on camera, and it wouldn't even actually call it a crash, just a small mistake. There was a quad in one of the rhythm lanes at Detroit, basically a step on, step off that the guys were going all the way over. He caught some sort of a rut or a soft spot, ended up, I've heard 2 different versions, either he came up short or he actually somehow came up long into the next transition. But either way, took all the brunt of the impact to his wrist. That's what we could see him holding as he got off the track. He's had it checked out this week. There's nothing broken, just a big bone bruise. Sounds like, some swelling and a lot of irritation. Basically, his report is that he's tried to ride. He just can't, control or doesn't have the strength in the wrist to properly put in what he needs this weekend. So we'll see him miss Indianapolis, possibly another round or two. We'll see as he announces each week how his wrist is doing. Lastly, one that wasn't actually from Detroit, but we finally got kind of confirmation on what is going on. Coty Schock did crash back at the Arlington round during the Triple Crowns. He did spend the week in the hospital with a punctured lung. They were checking out a bunch of other bruising throughout his body between shoulder and hip and femur, a few things like that. He did find out after getting transferred out of the hospital, though, that he had broken one of his fingers, and the sad news is his knee did take quite a bit of damage. He has a torn ACL and MCL. He will be having surgery in the upcoming week or so, and that's going to put him out for the rest of Supercross and likely the entire outdoor series where he really shined last year and put himself on the map. So get well soon, Cody. Hopefully we will get to see you. Well, again, probably won't see him for anything outdoors this year, so hopefully we'll just see him get healthy and be back for the 2023 season. So lastly, we did talk a little bit about some contracts last week, and we're going to fill in a couple more gaps this week. So an interesting conversation or rumor mill floating around was the off chance that Cooper Webb might try to return to Star Racing this year. His Red Bull KTM contract was up at the end of the season. There was talk that Dylan Ferrandis' deal was also up, and there might be either a direct swap or that Dylan just might go elsewhere. Cooper was talking about really wanting to return to Star when things weren't looking as good at KTM, but it seems like all that has quieted down from what we've heard this week. Dylan Ferrandis has re-signed at the Monster Energy Star Yamaha 450 program and will be staying put. We would imagine this is at least, of course, a one-year deal, likely a two-year deal. And then what we've heard on Cooper this week is he may have re-signed at KTM on a one-year extension. It would match his Red Bull deal, which we've heard his personal Red Bull contract is through 23. So by updating his KTM racing contract to also go through next season, that would put those on the same timeline. So it looks like Coop will also be staying put this season. That starts to sew up some of the bigger moves we thought we might see this offseason. Of course, as the talk of last week, Honda is still a huge open spot with the mystery that is Ken Roczen and what will be happening with his career. And then the Star Yamaha 450 program is starting to look like it's sealed up. As we've heard earlier in the season, Eli Tomac has taken up his one-year option or extension his contract, so he will still be there, of course, in 23. And with Dylan Ferrandis re-signing, it's not improbable or impossible that Star will run a third full-time 450 next year. They have Christian Craig, who's about to win his first 250 tile, that wants to go 450 full-time. And then they also have Justin Cooper and Colt Nichols that race for them on 250s that are basically pointed out because of their championships. Even though they both got hurt in terms of title defense, they both have to go 450 next year. As far as we're aware, though, none of those three actually have a contract for a 450 deal. They all just had 250 contracts with the team that are coming to an end. So Star would also have the choice between the three of them to give one of them a 450 shot. Sadly, though, is, again, there's three of them. They're looking for a spot, and we would only imagine that Star would probably field one more full-time 450, putting him at 3 under that truck. So it is going to be interesting to see which of those three riders they choose. Christian, of course, is having the most current success and has rode a 450 for them outdoors. Justin Cooper has probably been with the team the longest and been with Yamaha quite a bit as an amateur, so there is also probably a push from the Yamaha side to keep him within the company and on the brand. Colt Nichols, however, he has been with the team a little bit longer than Craig. He did have his success last year, but he also hasn't really ever put up the results outdoors. So for us, he would be the biggest question mark of those three. Maybe the least likely we would see to get that spot. So we've also heard his name thrown around other places. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more next week as we get a few more rumors. We'll keep filling those in at the end of those episodes. Again, as we hear more, we'll keep throwing those in at the end of these episodes. If you like this feature, make sure you thumbs up, subscribe, all the good stuff. And also check out our website at vitalmx.com, and we'll see you next week.